Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are going to be talking about an update on Tesla's production status at Fremont. We've also got some news at Giga Texas, some new emission standard proposals from NHTSA, and a few other items as well. All right, looking at the stock, nice day for Tesla today, nice day for the markets, but Tesla finishing up 4.20% to close at $266.44, while the NASDAQ up 1.9% on the day. So I think a lot of it was Tesla riding the success of the markets. Not a whole lot of Tesla-specific news today, driving the beta that we may have seen today. But I think the markets overall probably reacting to pretty good news from the PCE report, as we can see here. So personal consumption expenditures dropping, continuing to drop from where we have seen it over the last 12 months, now down to just below 3% year-over-year increase in PCE on the headline number. So nice to see that drop. That came in probably 10 basis points or so below expectations. And then if we look at core PCE, we can see not as nice of a trend, but actually a pretty big drop from last month's number, dropping from about 4.6% from the would have been May report into 4.1% for the June numbers. Now, obviously, these are coming out quite a bit after CPI, so we already had some pretty good CPI numbers for June, and this kind of builds on that. Nevertheless, didn't really change interest rate expectations for the September meeting. Obviously, we're quite a ways out from those. As Powell said, we're going to get a lot of economic data between now and then, still a couple of CPI reports, but with the FOMC meeting this week, with the PCE report now out, expectations on interest rates really not changed for the September meeting. 83% chance of them being between 5.25%, 5.5%, now dropped to 80% through all of the economic reporting that we'd had this week. So relatively stable, even though a lot going on. Not as much economic news next week. All right, getting into Tesla stuff. So it looks like there has been a resumption of production at Fremont. So this was reported on the YouTube channel Met God in the Wilderness. They have been doing some drone flyovers of Fremont, and previously it reported that it looked like production had been paused, and now we're reporting that it looked like production has been resumed at Fremont. Said, I don't know what to tell you. I can only tell you what I see. Tesla resumed production today after just a short pause. It's slow, but resumed with just 2 days. I don't think they can do a line upgrade, maybe just maintenance. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. I think this person plans on following it pretty closely, since we do have the rumors of production shutdowns during this month, or not even rumors, kind of confirmed by Tesla on the conference call for the Q2 report. But we'll keep an eye on this. Maybe they're doing this in sort of segments, or maybe the production is half resuming. Maybe Model Y is continuing, Model 3 shutdown, for example, something like that. So I'm sure we'll get a little bit more clarity as time goes on, but kind of interesting to see that brief stoppage and now seemingly another restart for production at Fremont. All right, then we do have some news from Giga Texas today. Apparently there was some, safety concerns happening. There was a report of a shooter at Giga Texas. Police went out and they weren't able to find any evidence that was actually going on. They said they found nothing out of the ordinary, no casualties, no sounds of gunfire, nothing to substantiate the presence of a shooter at all. So good news on the results of that, but probably a little bit of a disconcerting situation at Giga Texas. Glad to hear that there was nothing, out of the ordinary from what they were able to find from the investigation, but probably caused a little bit of a delay in terms of, progress today at Giga Texas. And again, glad to see that nothing else came of that. And then other news on Giga Texas, Gregor Truck on Twitter sharing a report, or sharing a video, I think that was originally shared on Facebook, of inside Giga Texas, and actually a Cybertruck on the line. We can kind of see it. It's not the best quality video, obviously, but you can see continuing to work on those release candidate vehicles. But obviously, there's not a big run of these. They're kind of just focused on this one right here. So maybe more in other parts of the factory, but interesting to get some insight into kind of how things are looking on the Cybertruck line right now. All right, next today we do have an updated proposal from NHTSA outlining fuel economy standards for the 2027 through 2032 model year time period. And this is always a little bit confusing because in the US, both the EPA and NHTSA have proposals and standards for these, and they don't necessarily have to coordinate. So it feels like we get some news on this pretty often. And there's actually a third party weighing in as well, but this is the NHTSA version. They are proposing that fuel economy standards rise to an average for each OEM's fleet, of 58 miles per gallon by the 2032 model year. Of course, that depends on how things are calculated, which we'll come back to in a second. But this relatively, in terms of the increase from previous proposals, or from, I guess, the most recent finalized proposal, which runs through the 2026 model year, that would put the average fleet target at 49 miles per gallon. So it's a bit of an increase. Obviously, that's a 6-7 year time period to be able to go from 49 to 58. Whether that's significant or not, I think kind of depends on your perspective. But interesting to see this proposal, and they do say that this, relatively aligns with, I'll scroll down a little bit further here, relatively aligns with the EPA in terms of what the EPA has proposed for those years. They said that they try to coordinate that so that it's relatively easy for automakers, if they're able to meet EPA standards, to then also meet NHTSA standards. Now, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation did comment on this. They called the draft a de facto battery electric vehicle mandate that is neither reasonable nor achievable in the time frame provided. But again, going from 2026 to 2032, only increasing by 9 miles per gallon, less than 20%. I guess it's percentage-wise a pretty decent increase over that period of time. But if automakers are really making the switches to EVs like they say they are going to do, then this should be something that is pretty achievable. So interesting to hear those comments nevertheless. But in terms of the actual impact this will have, I think this might be a little bit less important than something else that's going on in relation to how these things are actually calculated. The Department of Energy has commented on this, and we've previously talked about this. Right now, the calculation for electric vehicles on this average is pretty favorable. And that doesn't necessarily, you would think that maybe that helps Tesla, but because Tesla is 100% EVs, it doesn't make any difference for them. But for example, for Ford, one F-150 Lightning, sorry about the sirens, one F-150 Lightning right now would basically bring the average up because it is currently rated at about 238 miles per gallon equivalent. So obviously pulls the average way up, but that's probably not very realistic. And the rating in reality should probably be a little bit closer to like 67 miles per gallon, which the Department of Energy has proposed to adjust in terms of how those calculations are done. So obviously that would have a much more significant impact, I think, on what ends up happening with these standards than whether it's 56 or 58 miles per gallon targets in 2032. So we'll keep an eye on this, but I think probably the most important thing to watch is that ruling from the Department of Energy. All right, next we've got a couple of items on India. So basically the same story we continue to hear. 2 Tesla senior executives meeting with 2 officials in the investment promotion arm in New Delhi in India, according to 2 people with direct knowledge of the matter. So we'd had previous reports that these meetings were going to continue through this month. So probably no surprise on that. But paired with that, there is a report on BYD and their conversations with India, with Reuters also reporting that BYD now plans to pause or shelve its investment plans in India. They say that this decision has arisen because of security concerns about the investment, probably stemming from India's side, from a Chinese company that are putting up some blocks in terms of their plans for this possible $1 billion investment in India. So it sounds like they're, at least for now, dropping the pursuit of this. Obviously that can change and could be negotiating and things like that, but that probably would affect the conversations that happen with Tesla. Whether that's, good or bad, I think probably if BYD dropped out, it maybe puts a little bit more pressure on India to give Tesla good terms, to make sure that they're securing, one of those the 2 leading EV manufacturers today. So interesting. I'm sure we'll continue to talk more about India in the coming months, but pretty relevant update there for BYD today. All right, next, V4 Superchargers. We've been talking a little bit about these over the last couple of weeks, and the installation process for V4 Superchargers does continue. So Tesla Owners Club France noticing that another 20 stall V4 Supercharger has opened. I'm not sure exactly where in France this is, or even if it is in France, I guess, which I think it is. Oh, sorry, I think we have maybe some music going. Hopefully not. We'll get to that in a second. So SpaceX is doing another launch. But V4 Supercharger, nice to see these continue. I think this is the 4th one, if I recall correctly. So the 4th V4. but nice to see those continue and a pretty significant number of stalls with this location. There was also some posts today about the power capacity of V4 superchargers, and on the pedestal at least, it looks like those do 1,000 volts and 1,000 amps, which technically would make these capable of 1 megawatt. However, obviously, they might not draw the maximum voltage and amperage from both at the same time, and even the current V3 superchargers are more capable, or at least on the pedestal side, are more capable of drawing higher than 250 kilowatts. So it doesn't necessarily mean much in terms of what those rates would be. And then obviously it's dependent on the vehicles as well. But I think having that, it obviously gives Tesla a little bit more flexibility to potentially increase those over time. All right, Tesla has redesigned their website. Maybe not a redesign, but updated their website. And they've reconfigured sort of the navigation. Previously you had Model 3, Model Y, etc. up on top. We had a navigation bar over here. Now they've divided this into categories, so vehicles, energy products, charging products, Discover, so basically other navigation stuff, and then the shop. So kind of interesting to see that, but similar feel and look to what we have seen from Tesla's website now for a while. They are emphasizing now demo drives a little bit more, so that's kind of the primary link here outside of navigation is highlighting demo drives. And Tesla has also added demo drives into the referral program. So if somebody uses your referral link and they sign up for a demo drive through that, you'll earn 100 referral award credits in the loot box. So kind of interesting to see that, an incentive that I don't recall Tesla having implemented in the referral program previously. So this is what it would look like if you follow a referral link into the demo drive. You just go in and pick what vehicle you want. It'll give you an option to go and find a location and schedule that demo drive. So interesting to see that Tesla, continuing to do a little bit more in terms of promotion like we've seen in recent weeks. Tesla also sent out an email to current owners with FSD beta today, highlighting that offer of FSD transferability before the end of the quarter. All right, and then last couple of things, just quick updates on Ford. So more takeaways from their earnings call yesterday. We talked a little bit about their EV plan shifting back, but they also talked more about hybrids and said that you're going to see a lot more hybrid systems from us. So interesting to see that comment hand in hand with the delay of some of their EV targets and some of the comments that Farley had about demand being maybe a little bit slower for EVs. Now more of an emphasis on hybrids, and it's also interesting given the context that we talked about with the Inflation Reduction Act, where there are some pretty significant incentives for hybrid vehicles. They can, pretty much qualify for the full credits in a very similar way to a fully battery electric vehicle. So talked about how this may lead to some problems down the road based on how that was written, and that could definitely be having an influence here in terms of what Ford is planning for their business. So not something that I'm super thrilled to see, and I have been, Ford, you kind of got to take on two sides. I think they're making a really good effort, but I also think that there's things that they're doing that are a little bit lacking. So it's tough, and when they make comments like this, it gets a little bit tougher to be positive about where their business is heading. Certainly I think Farley is making a great effort, and hopefully they can get on the right track, but this seems to be a little bit of a deviation from what appeared to have been them being a little bit more on the right track. So again, that goes hand in hand with some of their comments on EVs. We talked about how the 600,000 production target that got pushed to sometime in 2024, so it could be a year or more delay on their previous target. And then they'd also said that they were going to be targeting 2 million per year by the end of 2026, but now they've just removed that target, and they say that they don't know when they'll achieve that volume. So again, not super inspiring in terms of their confidence on their production run rates for EVs. And then lastly for today, you can see we're about 15 minutes out now from another attempt. We had this on the live stream earlier this week, another attempt at the Falcon Heavy launch for the largest commercial satellite put in orbit in history. So hopefully this one goes off. It seems like, I think SpaceX tweeted they have a 90% probability of favorable weather. So I did put a link in the description to that live stream if you want to jump over there after we wrap this up, which will be right now. So hope everybody has a great weekend. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you on Monday for the July 31st episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.